Iowa's last trip to Ann Arbor in 2019 was a game that was largely played between the 240-yard lines, especially Iowa's offense. We could not get the ball past the 40. I don't know if you recall that, Don.
I remember being sacked 8 or 10 times, whatever.
Constantly. We kept getting past the 50, good field position. We'd get stops. I remember a pick or two for Iowa's defense. Could not get the ball past that mark. Now, the good news for Iowa's offense is Caleb Schudek's a guy who has shown that he can kick the long ball. The difference in 2019, Don, Iowa didn't have a kicker they were comfortable, and at least from my vantage point, they didn't have a kicker they were comfortable with from 50-plus. Keith Duncan was an accurate kicker, but he was not your big leg of a Marshall Kane or a Caleb Schudek. So that's an advantage in a game like this as well.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. That's why it's so important. And the good news about turnovers, we're the most proficient, of course, at generating turnovers. Michigan is okay in that regard, but not nearly on the level we are. Michigan does do a good job protecting the ball offensively in terms of turnovers. They were even, as I mentioned, in 5 games. So a typical Michigan game, both teams would have 1 turnover, maybe or maybe 2 at the most. Iowa's been known, of course, to generate multiple turnovers on defense in certain games. That'll be hard to do against Michigan because they protect the ball well. It's not going to come easy to force turnovers, but we'll hope that we can somehow find a way to do that, because that'll obviously make a difference in our field position, and of course in many cases that gives you a chance to be set up on the short end of the field rather than the long end.
The Big Ten is here's a stat that's kind of sort of interesting. The Big Ten is basically 2 tiers as far as the passing attack. Ohio State, Purdue, Maryland, Penn State, Nebraska, Michigan State, Michigan. The top 7 all average 225 plus yards per game through the air. And then you have Iowa, Northwestern, Indiana, Rutgers, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois that all average 178 or less. So there's a big drop off there, but Michigan is 7th in the Big Ten in passing, Iowa 8th. So not a huge difference there.
And yet in terms of yards per game, it's maybe as much as 50 or so.
It's right around 50 yards per game.
Yeah.
And of course, Michigan deploys 2 quarterbacks at times. What do you see as the differences between the two? Obviously, McNamara, the primary kid, and I don't even think of the other guy.
McCarthy, I think it is.
McCarthy, J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, McCarthy. It looks to me like if McCarthy's in the game, it's considerably more likely to be a run play. Oftentimes, he might end up carrying the ball even. So a lot of zone read stuff maybe would show up. I don't doubt that they might break tendencies and throw with him. I don't know how many pass attempts he has on the season, but he's without question the better runner. I think that's safe to say. Incidentally, they've got not 2 but 3 good running backs, but we do have another personnel tendency there, I think. Everybody knows about Haskins, of course. He's the starter, and he's a very good physical running back. I like number 2. He's a good solid backup too. He's got speed. And then they have a true freshman, number 7. And I think when he's in the game, you should expect even that he's going to be throwing the ball. And it's simple stuff like swings out of the backfield so that they can get him out in space. He must have really good hands. He made 1 catch in the Ohio State game that was pretty phenomenal. He was running to his right, and he just simply snagged the ball with his right hand and had no assistance at all from his left hand. And that was on a cold, snowy, sleety day. So I think if 7's in the game, we better get ready. Much more likely to be a pass than a run, I think. And I don't know any of the breakdowns they've got on as a staff, but just from observing the games, I think they're more likely to throw when 7's in the game. They're certainly more likely to run when 25's in the game. And when 2's in the game, I think it's more likely to be a wide play versus when 25's in the game. We better be able to defend to begin with. We better be able to defend between the tackles, because that's one similarity in both teams. Both teams pride themselves on being able to run the ball up the gut. And they have the back that can do it. And they have O-line blocking similar to our center guard blocking. And it'll be a challenge for either team to defend those inside runs with a lot of success, because those plays, of course, if you can knock out 4 yards or more, that's what you're interested in doing, because we can deal with second and medium. We just can't deal with second and long, third and long.
Okay, so the offensive line progression has been well documented these past few weeks. What people aren't talking about, in my opinion, is the evolution of Iowa's run defense. And you may say, well, Iowa's run defense has always been good. Let's remember, two of the top three teams in the Big Ten rushing the football are Wisconsin and Minnesota. As you know, Don, Iowa did not stop the run very well against Wisconsin, and they really didn't stop the run very well against Minnesota. But a couple of the more underrated teams on the ground are Nebraska and Illinois, two teams that are in the upper tier, you could say the top 7 of the Big Ten in rushing. Iowa completely shut down Illinois' rushing attack, which I think impressed us both, Don, at the time.
Yeah.
Nebraska rushed for approximately 130 yards, but only averaged 3 yards on the ground. A lot of those came from Smothers at quarterback early. I think Iowa was kind of feeling him out. So everybody wants to talk about Michigan's rushing attack. It is best in the Big Ten right now, which is a scary proposition when you look at how Iowa played against Wisconsin and Minnesota. But again, I think Iowa's run defense has actually improved. What are your thoughts?
I think you're right. Those games you mentioned that we performed well in, of course, were our last 2 games. I made the comment after the Illinois game. I said I didn't know that anybody could hold their back to 42 yards, but we did. And 2 reasons for that. He only had 13 carries in that game. He got banged up a little bit in the second half and missed a few snaps. But part of the reason he didn't get more touches also is because we weren't playing from behind. So it's important to start fast and not allow them, even if they're protecting the lead, of course. Now you're going to see a back like Haskins with 25 carries, or I doubt that he'll have more than 25, of course, because Corum will have some, and even the 13 back will have some.
Back to the sort of narrative that Iowa's really not playing good football right now. I think that should be dispelled because they've won. First of all, they've won 4 straight games, right? And they had to win those 4 games to have any chance at the West. I think we said that after the Wisconsin game. You got to win out here if you want any chance to win this division. They did that. They're champions. But I think there is this notion that they haven't played anybody good. Minnesota's pretty darn good, Don. And I know they lost to Bowling Green early. I don't want to use the word fluke. That's probably a word that coaches don't like. But that was sort of a weird game early. They were really good against Wisconsin. They've looked pretty darn good. I mean, I know Illinois beat them, but Illinois also blew out Northwestern. I mean, Iowa didn't impress me against Northwestern whatsoever. It looked like a very pedestrian game plan, especially in that second half when Padilla came in there. I think you'd probably agree with that. But Nebraska plays everybody close.